Welcome to Smart Women Talk. This is your host, Katana Abbott. I'm a midlife millionaire coach and a certified financial planner, and I search the world for smart women and a few good men, including best-selling authors and thought leaders who are on that leading edge. So join us for conversations on money, business, health, and inspiration, so you can live with more purpose, passion, and prosperity. Hi, and welcome to Smart Women Talk. This is your host, Katana Abbott, and today we're speaking with physical therapist, integrative health coach, and happiness trainer, Margie Bissinger, about how to have healthy bones for life. May is Osteoporosis Awareness Month. So we're going to talk about the difference between osteoporosis and osteopenia, what an osteoporosis exercise program should include, things like resistance training, weight-bearing exercise, and balance training. We're going to talk about vitamins and minerals that are necessary for healthy bones and the impact stress has on our bones. But first, let me tell you a little bit about Margie. Margie is a physical therapist, an integrative health coach, happiness trainer, and author. She oversees all the osteoporosis initiatives in the state of New Jersey. Margie teaches an online program to give people the tools to naturally achieve optimal bone health. She's the host of Happy Bones, Happy Life podcast. And Margie created the Happy Me, Happy Life online program to help people increase their happiness level, energy, and overall health. She has been featured in the New York Times, Menopause Management, OBGYN News, and contributed to numerous health and fitness books. So we are in for a really great show. Margie, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so glad to be here with you and all your listeners.
Yes, and of course we plan to be matching today, right?
I know, I love it. I love it.
No, it's just an accident, but how perfect.
Absolutely.
So I have to tell you, I really believe that the stars line up sometimes just perfectly. And I get invitations to a lot of summits, and I found out about you when you did it was this year, the Osteoporosis and Bone Health Summit. And that's where I also found our other guest this month, Dr. Tom O'Brien. And so, it was like a perfect timing because I had been diagnosed with osteopenia about a decade ago. And the doctors had me coming in for the bone density test every 2 years. And all they would say to me is, okay, well, it's getting worse, but it's, so just, come back in 2 years and we'll see if it's even worse then. I mean, basically, that's what they're saying. No discussion about, diet or exercise or anything. So I kept doing that. And then finally, I just got kind of fed up. So in 2020, I went to an endocrine specialist. And he told me that he took all the tests, and he told me since I had 2 fractures that year, and Margie, one of them, I fell into the river and I broke my wrist because I hit rocks. Anyone would have broken their wrist, right? I had to have a plate put in there. So, but I did fracture my ankle. And so he said, because of that, he said, I'm going to classify you as osteoporosis. And he wanted to put me on this drug called Reclasp. And it just didn't sound right to me. So I told him I wanted time. I'm going to try something else. Then I started researching. And I want to tell you, he said, the research I found that not only could you have nausea, flu-like symptoms, dizziness, and vision problems, but the side effects could include femur fractures, osteoporosis. I don't know if I got that one right, but it's of the jaw, which is a dead jaw syndrome, and esophageal cancer. And I thought, there's no way I'm following this protocol. So that was in 2020. So I started with diet and exercise, even more. And I went in this January for my bone density, and guess what? it quit. My bone density actually stabilized. And so I'm excited to have you here. I know the women's ears are burning because they probably have had similar situations. And I've got 2 girlfriends right now that are on the reclasp. And I hope I'm going to invite them to, to watch this show to learn, because we have you, the expert here. So I want to find out from you, what is this osteoporosis? What is osteopenia? And also, have you heard stories like this? And what do you think of my experience?
Okay. Wow. Well, the truth is, it's sad. The truth is, it makes me really upset because this is what's happening all over. And I think that's one of the reasons I'm so passionate about this, because I've been working with people with osteoporosis and osteopenia for over 25 years. And I don't blame the physicians, because that's what they're taught. It's not, I really don't. If you're taught there's a pill for all ills and what's the treatment, you really don't look at root causes. You don't look at prevention. So much is missing. And it's exciting, not exciting, but it's exciting because it's empowering. There's so much that can be done. And even for people who are on medication, people think, okay, I'm taking that, I'm done. It's not that case. It's not that. But I always believe that there's silver linings to everything, and that the diagnosis of osteopenia or osteoporosis is really an invitation. It's an opportunity to examine where you are in your health. Like, I'm sure you did great things for your body, where you are with your exercise, your stress level, your food. And then you can sort of see, because the bones aren't in isolation. Usually when something's going on with the bones, there's things other places. So you end up doing all these great things that really will help your health for the rest of your life. So that's how I look at it. But in answering your question, so what is it? So the word osteoporosis just means porous bones. And what happens is you're losing bone, both in the architecture, so the quality and the quantity of bone. And the difference between osteopenia and osteoporosis, the way it's diagnosed, is solely by a bone density test. So when you get the bone density test, they give you a number, and the key number is the T-score. And what that does, that measures what is the standard deviation away from a healthy 30-year-old's bones. So anywhere from 0 to -1 is considered normal. Anything from -1 to -2.5 is considered osteopenia, and anything from -2.5 and lower is osteoporosis. So it's really just a number. Unfortunately, everybody gets, that's what everybody, oh my gosh, that the number. And if you have this number, you go on this medication. And that's missing so many things that we'll get into. But the thing is, there could be 2 people with the exact same number, but one, the quality on a typical DEXA. Now, there are some other tests that help with quality, but your basic bone density test that gives you the number doesn't tell you the quality. So you could have really strong, flexible bones that if you fall, you're not going to fracture. Or you can have bones, like twigs on a tree that, even if they may be strong, or chalk, if it falls, it fractures. So it's only one piece of information that everybody looks at that gives you that diagnosis.
Well, I don't have osteoporosis. I know that, but it's like, I want to erase his record there. And so anyway, I am going to prove these doctors completely wrong. And I want to ask you about food, because one of my clients can't take supplements. So she told me that she started eating high foods that were rich in calcium, just foods, leafy greens and stuff. And there is a whole list. And I think you have access to that whole list too. And she raised her bone density 7%.
It's really interesting because there's a lot of different things. And the one thing everyone is so worried about is calcium. And yes, we need calcium. We definitely need calcium. But a lot of people go about it incorrectly. They say, all right, I'll drink all this milk, or I'll, really up my dairy. But the problem for many people is that dairy is inflammatory. And they haven't found that the countries and the places where they have the highest amount of dairy, they actually have the highest amount of osteoporosis. So that's not the way to do it. But yes, there's lots of great ways you can get calcium in your diet. The leafy greens is my absolute favorite. I think that's, and three of my favorite that a lot of people, it just isn't on their list of foods, but it's easy to incorporate, is collard greens. And collard greens, I learned this from Bear Burger, actually, that they use that as a wrap. So, when you're making turkey burgers or bean burgers, you can just use the collards as a wrap instead of a bun, or you can saute them, or you can, I make I'll use it as a wrap and put like an Oriental sauce and all sorts of whatever's left over.
Wait,
You can
so
put
you
in.
do with the fresh one or a cook?
I steam it. I steam it for just a couple of minutes. Yeah, because it's too hard. Otherwise, it wouldn't taste good. You steam it, but it's not the most flavorful. So that's why I feel you need to put things in it for me, like a little Asian sauce or some different things, or just everything that would go with the turkey burger with some avocado, and I like mustard, whatever you put it. So, but that's one easy. So collards, I love. Bok Choy. I mean, collards have, I think, around 265 milligrams per cup cooked. So it's high. Bok Choy is another great one that sometimes is not on people's radar. And you can put that in salads. You can, saute it. There's lots of ways you can use Bok Choy, kale. So those are three easy ones. And
I think with kale, Margie, there's some that are really tough. And then we get this kale that they're long and thin, and they're super tender.
Yeah.
And so, you can cut the little stem off it there, and you can massage oil into it and use it in salads. And I just love to cut it up, and then whatever I'm cooking, whether it's a soup, I do a lot of sautés, in the frying pan. On the stove with veggies and stuff. And I always love to add the greens. So I was growing kale, but it was these big elephant ear ones, and they were a lot tougher. I'm sure they were really good for you and everything. But boy, if you can find the right ones, then it's just a lot easier to eat them.
Yeah. And just one thing to note, a lot of people will look, and one of the gifts that I'm giving is this e-course that we can talk about later, but it does have a quick calcium sheet, like foods that have, have calcium. It's a way to sort of see how much calcium you're getting in your diet. But a lot of people will look and they'll say, oh, spinach. Well, that's a great thing to eat. The problem with spinach is that it's high in oxalic acid, which combines with the calcium and makes it indigestible. So it's not that you shouldn't have spinach, but you can't count that as part of your calcium intake because you're really not going to absorb most of it, as well as beet greens. Those would be and Swiss chard. Those would be like the three that you have to, just don't count.
Does cooking help?
It does reduce it. It does reduce it, but still, I wouldn't count that when you're really adding up how much calcium you're getting. But the greens, that's one of my first tips when people are trying to start, because you can't overwhelm. And I think that's important for everybody listening. You can get overwhelmed with doing good things. And I'm a big person in reducing stress and increasing happiness. And overwhelm is not your friend at all. So whatever I say today, just take one thing that's easy to incorporate. But in terms of with the greens, one of the first things you could do is just add some greens into your diet. And it's such a win-win situation in so many ways.
So, okay, if not spinach, one of my other favorites is arugula. How is that?
Good. Yeah, arugula is good.
Perfect. Because you can replace, I like to put that in salads, and also it makes just a great salad. But to put it in soups and stir fries and stuff like that as well.
Sounds
good. So I remember the Diamonds had a book where they talked about food combining. This was, I'm going to age myself, but probably over 35 years ago, their book came out, and they talked about when a lion, what is the strongest animal? A cow, right? And a cow eats grass. I mean, it doesn't drink milk. It eats grasses and greens. And they said that the lion, which is another strong animal, when, it eats animals. However, they said when it kills the animal, like the antelope, what is the first thing it eats?
I don't know. Tell me.
The intestines to get all the greens. Isn't that interesting? And
it really is.
And then she said it was then the organ meat, and the last is the leg meat, and that's usually what we eat is the breast and the leg on these animals, So, but the animals themselves, they want to get those greens. So I thought that was really interesting.
Yes.
Another thing I wanted to mention is for years, we've had well water. I guess as long as I can remember. So we've had a reverse osmosis system. And what I found out, so I'm asking your opinion on this, but what we found out was that, and I tested it, it was more acid than the water coming from the ground, because outside it had all these minerals in it. And so I was getting water that was a little acidic all these years and also no minerals in it. So recently, and this is what I did after my that doctor told me he wanted to put me on reclass, is we bought a mineralizer for our reverse osmosis, and it raised the alkalinity nice and high, like 9, and it's putting minerals back into the water. And I just wish I had known about that before, but that could be part of the reason for the bone density, as I was drinking water with no minerals.
It's so interesting because I have that same reverse osmosis, because it really is wonderful. And it really is a great way. Unfortunately, there's so many toxins in the water. So that's not good for your bones, the heavy metals, different things. But you just want to make sure that you're getting the minerals in your diet, or, somehow you're getting the minerals to replenish. Absolutely.
So, okay, well, I'll post in our Facebook. I'll ask my husband, what this mineralizer thing is.
Yeah, I'm going to look into that. That's very interesting. I never knew about that. So yeah.
Pretty exciting. So I was happy to know about that. Okay. So then another question. See, I told you I'll have lots.
Should we go into a little more though for the food? Because the calcium, what I see in my practice is that people are getting too much calcium because they're getting, and this is really interesting. Everyone says calcium and vitamin D, calcium and vitamin D. But what I see oftentimes is that people will come in and they're getting some in their diet. Let's say they're getting 600 milligrams or whatever. And the doctor then will give them 1,200 milligrams. So they're getting too much. And this is a situation where more is absolutely not better, because there have been studies, nothing's 100% conclusive, but there have been some suggestions that too much calcium in terms of supplements can end up going places we don't want, such as the arteries and such as the joints and such as the kidney, so we certainly don't want kidney stones. We don't want any of that. So it's not just like keep taking your calcium, it's see what you get in your food and try to get as much as you can in your food, and then only supplement if you're not getting enough in your food. And the other thing that I think is missing, and the doctors a lot of times aren't telling people, is that it's like a whole symphony. You need everything, in terms of eating from the rainbow, but specifically the two that are absolutely critical when it comes to absorbing. And we know about the vitamin D, and we can go into that in more detail in a minute if you want. But is magnesium. Magnesium is very, very important for absorption of calcium, and so many people are deficient. So magnesium is one that's very important, and you want at least minimum half the amount of it used to be 1-to-1 ratio, like in caveman days, of magnesium to calcium, and that's fine. But at least half the amount of calcium in magnesium, half the amount minimum. But the other thing that really isn't talked about much is vitamin K2, and vitamin K2 takes the calcium from it has two parts. It activates 2 proteins. So one is osteocalcin. And what that does, that makes sure the calcium gets into the bones and the teeth where it's meant to go, like it squirts it there. And the other is called matrix GLA protein. What that does, that sweeps it out of the soft tissues where it shouldn't be, out of the arteries. So I think this is a very important vitamin, and it's just not always talked about, and something that people, I think, should make sure they get enough of.
Wow. So vitamin K and K1 and 2.
Yeah. K1, if you're eating leafy greens, you'll get enough.
Okay.
So K1 is if you're eating the leafy greens, eat some basil, eat some other thing, you'll get enough. Lettuce, all of that has K1 in it. And again, if you're on blood thinners, you need to be careful when you add too many greens, and always check with your doctor.
Well, I'm going to make an appointment with you to talk about my supplements and that, because I ordered one that is, you take the calcium, for breakfast and dinner, but then before bedtime, you take strontium, I think it is, or Okay.
Glad we're talking.
Oh, okay, good.
Okay.
It's $80 a month. So it's like, I don't want to take something that I don't need. So I really am so happy we're talking.
Yes, I'm really happy we're talking because here's the story on strontium. Strontium is heavier than calcium and it competes for the same site. And the problem with strontium is that it's denser, I guess. So on a bone density, so if you're taking strontium and get another bone density, it's going to look like your bones got better, but it's actually not increasing the tensile strength at all. So it's a false improvement. And you don't want it at all. You really don't want strontium. Nobody feels, in terms of like the national, well, now it's called the national, it used to be called the National Osteoporosis Foundation. It's now the Bone, I always forget the name, the Bone and Osteoporosis Foundation. Everybody, nobody thinks that strontium is a good thing to do because it replaces, it can compete. So it falsely, makes your bones seem stronger, but they're not. It actually can weaken your bones. So you don't want that. And then what happens, people are so excited their DEX is better, but they're taking strontium. So it's not even, it actually, it destroys the accuracy of your next bone density test. So yes or no, don't take the strontium.
Oh, see, so I'm just going to go toss it then.
Yeah, I would.
I'm very and this is the problem I think all of us have when we keep reading things and we start self-diagnosing and, our doctors don't talk about supplements. They do say vitamin D. That's, calcium, vitamin D.
Yes.
But anything else you don't really get advice on. So I am so glad that I asked you about this because I'm probably not the only person. And that little combination there is $80 a month. It's so stupid. And I would much rather put that into fabulous groceries, wonderful greens and things that are going to be delicious to eat too.
You know what I like people to do, if they can, instead of test, not guess. So there are some tests where you can actually measure your micronutrients and see what you're missing. So you can see before you haphazardly just start taking. And I think that's why it's important before you do take things that you research them, or at least work with someone who can go through the research. What is shown, what's proven, what is this doing? Instead of just saying, oh, you see something, oh, this increases bone. Because we're all, we all want to catch that quick fix, or if this can help me, we want to do what we can. But unfortunately, we need to see what's proven, what's research-based, what's been shown to work, and what's safe. So I think
now, do you have access to those tests, or do you have a suggestion?
I don't. It's interesting. You're having Dr. Tom O'Brien on. He actually can order them on his site, but you can also work with functional medicine doctors, integrated doctors. The one I like is called, and this is the one Dr. Tom has on his site as well. It's Vibrant America. They have a micronutrient panel. And so, yeah. So, and you can also call the company up because they'll tell you what facilities are nearby that have it. But that's one of the ones that I find really helpful because there also SpectraCell's another one that does that. They're both good. I've been using Vibrant America recently, but it's just a good way to see where you're at. It can measure. So I'm a big believer in that. If people can afford that, and it's not, it used to be partly covered by insurance, but now
I know, but the HSA cards, I'm so amazed that
it probably is covered by that. Yeah.
Yeah. So we did have the medical spending account, but now we switched to HSA and I just use it for some tests and it covered it. And I was just so thrilled.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah. So I would say the key things, again, there's a lot, but the key in terms of is the calcium, the D, the magnesium, and the vitamin K2, and also just one thing to mention, protein, because protein, a lot of people, think or just don't get enough, especially as they get older. So it's something very important for the bone matrix, what helps it maintain its flexibility.
Well, that's the other question too, because, these big animals like cows, they get protein from the grains they're eating. Now they have a different type of digestion, but I I believe a lot of the foods that we eat have, besides meat, but you can get protein from beans, but you can also get it from vegetables, correct? All vegetables have some amount of protein.
Some, but usually if you're a vegetarian, you really do need to either add protein powder or just have beans, have lentils, have chickpeas, the beans are a great source of protein.
And is the collagen powder considered a protein?
You get some protein, yeah.
Okay.
It's not complete protein, but yes, I'm a big believer in collagen as well. That's also very helpful for the matrix, so what's around the bone, so that it has more flexibility.
Wonderful. Oh, this is so great. Okay, this is a big question I have. So, a lot of our audience, or especially the women I work with, are 60 plus, we're getting up to 60. But I know that we have listeners from all over the world of all ages. And one of the things that I was reading is that everyone starts getting concerned about the bone density when they get diagnosed, with their bone density issues. But so this is what I read, that you actually are determining your bone health when you're my age by what I did in my 30s, 40s, and 50s in the way of, diet, smoking, drinking, exercise, stress. Is that true?
That is absolutely true. And I think the message that I just believe needs to be conveyed, because the truth is, ready for this? It's not only in your 30s. Women develop 85 to 90% of their bone, their peak bone. 90% amount of bone they're going to get by the age of 18 in women and 20 in men. And then you have peak bone, around the age of 30. So those years early on, it's sort of like a bank where we're making deposits. And later on, when you lose some, which does happen, with menopause, and then with as we age, we lose some. But then you have so much more to draw from. So it makes a huge difference. And the problem is, today's society, a lot of people are couch potatoes. So jumping, all those things that, kids do is critical. Sitting and being sedentary and a computer is not good for your bones, as well as eating, eating the standard American diet and junk food. All of that is not nourishing for your bones as well. And stress, we might as well just address that now. Stress, cortisol, the stress hormone, actually reduces the osteoblasts, which are the bone building cells. And they've done studies showing that increased stress, that there's a relationship between increased stress and reduced bone density. So it's so funny, because everybody comes to see me and they want to know, what can they eat? They're very worried about diet, and very worried, are they doing the right exercises? And I'd say 90% of the people are very stressed out, and they don't realize that the stress itself is certainly a risk factor and something that needs to be dealt with. So I think that's, just part of the equation. And so, yes, you're so right. If we could get the younger generation to do these things, to put bone health, just like, all the pediatricians and the gynecologists, where they're worried about other things, they just don't really say, oh, okay, what kind of exercise are you doing? Or let's go over your diet. Because if they did that, and we're working on that, the different organizations, even the Bone Health and Osteoporosis Foundation, that's what they're really working on now, getting the younger generation to think about having healthy bones later on. So you are so right that it makes a big difference at all ages. So younger, and then as you get older, to be doing things, to be, because the bones respond to forces placed upon it. So with exercise, with your diet, with stress, all those things are going to impact the bones you have when you're older. So it's not as though, oh gosh, 65, I got the bone density test. Oh no, it doesn't have to be that way.
Well, I have the desk I'm sitting at right now is, I can actually pull it up and stand.
Great.
Isn't that just so, and I kind of forgot that I could do that. So the other day, I did that, and I've made a decision that I'm going to spend much less time at the desk, period. To really minimize my time here, to be very thoughtful about it. Especially, I'm in Michigan, and in the wintertime, you can't go outside. At least I can't, because I don't like the cold. I know there's a lot of people that like downhill skiing and all that. And I get scared to walk outside on the cement, because it's very icy. And I've gone flying before. I don't mind hiking in the woods. So, so that can be an issue too. But is standing at your desk on one of those little boards that goes back and forth, is that going to be much better for you than sitting?
I like to have people do a combination. Yeah, I think it's a good thing. Plus sitting, a lot of people, their posture, there's a lot. That's what I see all the time. People are really rounded, and there's so many negatives to that in terms of, besides your back, besides being rounded, and they found studies forward bending increases your risk of spinal fractures actually. But yes, so that's a good thing. But you can even take it a step. You can take it a step beyond. So you could do things like go up on your toes and down on your heels. There's an exercise I like called pump pump, where you go up on your toes and down twice on your heels while you have a hand in your neck and your low back. So you have to be in alignment. All exercise needs to be in alignment. But you can do things like that. You can stand on one foot. So you can do some balance things. You can do some exercises, even stomping. Now they found like stomping can help with bone density, but there's a qigong, like a gentle stomp where you're just like a relaxed foot and you're just stomping while you're standing. So there's some things you can do to even throughout the day. So you're getting forces on your bones, you're working on your balance. So you can even like take it the next step.
So I know a doctor who's in her 70s, and she was the one that introduced me to this idea of the stand-up desk. And that's all she uses.
Great.
And she came on our retreat to Costa Rica, and she wears a bikini. That's how strong and healthy she is. Yes.
Wow.
Anti-aging doctor.
Wow. Good for her. Yeah. I tell people with that desk, there's certain things where they say stand a certain time, sit. I think what feels good to you, what works, you can gradually, but if your knees are bothering you or if things hurt, obviously you want to sit, you want to go up and down. But yes, that's so good to get out of the sitting for so long. Absolutely. That's great.
Good. So should we talk about, because I love that when you started talking about the exercises, I've had both knees done. So I've been through physical therapy. And when you were talking about standing on one foot and doing the different things, I've done those. What do you suggest for people to strengthen their bones? Is walking going to be a good exercise? Can they ride their bicycle? Can, yoga, or are there specific exercises that we should be doing?
Okay, so that's such a good question. And the problem is a lot of times people will go to the doctor and the doctor will say, oh, exercise. And then you don't know, you're like, well, what do you mean? Or do weight bearing. Well, weight bearing is anything against gravity. So, where the bones are responding to forces against gravity. So it's walking, dancing, jogging, anything in that position versus swimming, which is non-weight bearing. And so they may just say weight bearing or resistance exercises. Well, with just walking, unfortunately, and walking's great. I'm a big believer in definitely walk, but it's not what's really been found in the research to be most effective in increasing bone density. Does help with fracture prevention. And, they've done studies in the women's health that just walking certainly helps reduce fractures. But the thing is that, yes, so walking's fine and it's weight bearing, but you want to do more than that. So what they've really found is strength training and high intensity. And so my suggestion, anyone that, whether you have osteopenia, osteoporosis, the absolute best thing is to work with a physical therapist, at least even go one time, just to get evaluated, because so often, well-meaning people are doing things not in the right position, or they're compensating. And, I just don't want, and because what's effective is really higher weights, lower repetitions. That's what the studies have found. The studies have found, like 80% to maximum, which means like around 10 repetitions. Ideally that's what they found. So it's not the high repetitions that's causing bone. It's lower repetitions with higher weight but of course what you can tolerate. And so you don't want to, it's hard to do that on your own safely. So my thought is, if you can, to work with someone, at least initially, even one time, just get evaluated, make sure there's nothing you're doing. And there's other people. There's Dr. Sherry Betts, who has these amazing classes that anyone can do online. But physical therapy is usually covered by insurance. So my suggestion is find a physical therapist who specializes in this. Not all physical therapists have that background. And you can, I always tell people, see who your insurance covers, because it's, why pay for it if you don't have to? And then call and see. You can also go on the American Physical Therapy Association website and plug in. They have somewhere to find a physical therapist. But, see who's local in your area and ask who specializes in this. And you should be able to find somebody. But what works? Yeah, I'm sorry.
So I remember you talking about resistance bands.
Yes.
So I had these hooks put on my wall here in my office, and I do have the bands. And so when I was going through physical therapy for the wrist, they have me doing these exercises. And then anyway, I've had a lot of physical therapy. So I put that on my wall, but then guess what, Margie? I've quit doing it. And so then when I just went back recently and I thought, darn it, I should be doing this. It was so effective, especially some of those when you would be pulling them and you're standing sideways and pulling. It was like an entire body workout.
Yes.
I noticed, because you're having to hold yourself strong, and you're pulling this direction, but I couldn't remember how to do them. See? So I think you're right. And I actually tore my rotator cuff by doing an exercise improperly once, and I had to get surgery on my shoulder.
Oh my goodness. So the thing is, you're right, though, when you do things, you want to learn how to stabilize, not holding your breath, stabilizing. Also the pelvic floor, you certainly want to strengthen that. So I always have people tighten the pelvic floor while you're breathing, while you bring your belly button in and up. So you're stabilizing. There's a couple of things to put together, but yes, it increases your strength. So resistance has really been shown in the strength training, the weight training, and it can be with weights. It could be using resistance bands. It could be the machines at the health club. The thing is, so what happens is when you contract a muscle, it's the tugging on the pulling on the bone. It's like, hey, we need more bone here, because that's what happens. The bone responds to the forces placed upon it. So when someone's, so it's that, or with the weight bearing, they've done studies where people on bed rest for spinal problems and your back injuries, and they found they lose almost 1% per week.
Oh
so
my gosh.
So it's really, if you don't use it, you lose it. And so the strength training is very important. The, weight bearing and impact. So jumping, again, it depends on what level you're at, in terms of your bone quality, but, especially younger people, or if you have osteopenia, jumping, all those things like really puts good forces on the bones, as long as you're doing it in good alignment. That's the issue.
What about that little mini trampoline?
The mini trampoline, I have one. I like it. Here's the deal on the mini trampoline. The mini trampoline, it's the force that's really the issue. So you don't have that much force. So it hasn't been proven, but it's good for lymph flow. It feels good. So I think there's a lot of benefits to it. They haven't studied it per se in terms of osteoporosis, but there's certainly nothing negative about it. And the other thing I like, which isn't an exercise, but I'll mention it because I think it's a good thing, is the vibration platform. And so that's something that the low intensity vibration unit, I stand on it every day for 10 minutes. And what it is, it's just, you barely even feel it. And they studied this with NASA, like what can stimulate in the bone marrow. It has an option that's called mesenchymal stem cells. And can they turn into bone, or do they turn into fat? So this stimulation they've shown can help with bone. So to me, it's expensive. It's not cheap, but it's something that, it's just easy. You stand on it for 10 minutes. And So
we have a vibrating bed. Does that count? Our bed rises up. We don't really use that part, but we can push this button, and it has.
That's so funny.
Different than that, right?
That's so funny. Yeah, and I interviewed Dr. Clinton Rubin at both the summit, also on my website and my podcast. I interviewed him, and he really explains like why this is different than those real high frequency vibrations, which can really be damaging in terms of your retina and different things. So anyway,
So what is it called?
I can give you a link if you want. And
and I could put that in our Facebook.
Yeah, I'll give you a link because the company gave me a discount for the summit, and it's still active. So I'll give that all to you so you can share it with everybody.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay,
it's called the Maradigm, but I'll I'll give that to you. Yeah. So you have that.
Great. Okay, super. Well, I'd like you to, I know you have
I
this
have to say one more thing about it. I have to say one more thing about the exercise. That's so important.
Yeah.
Everybody has to do balance exercises, because that's another thing. If you don't use it, you lose it. And as we get older, our balance really deteriorates. And that's what's gonna make or break a fall. You know what I mean? So I'm a big believer in every single day doing balance. And I love Tai Chi, even going forward and back. I love standing on one foot, walking like a straight line. There's all sorts of things you can do, but very important to start incorporating balance into your life, because it will. I work with people in their 80s and they have amazing balance, and it's just a matter of practicing it, and it's going to totally change everything and prevent falls. It really will.
So all of this that we're talking about is called self-care.
Yes.
And women tend to put themselves last on the list, right?
Yes.
And we have to go into our calendar. First of all, we need to find out what is our daily practice, whether it's a prosperity practice or meditation, but we need to put the time in to do this exercise, or to incorporate, remember, stand up or quit sitting and go for a walk, or, when do the balancing, when you're filling the coffee, make your coffee pot up with the water from the fridge, that's filtered. So I'm trying to incorporate all that, but I think that is the key, that we have to incorporate self-care. So I know that you have a wonderful program, the Happy Bones, Happy Life. And so you like to tie in with the bones happiness. So I think I really want to, kind of wrap our program up with you talking about your program. Tell us a little bit about why happiness and joy is so important to our bones, because I don't think anyone would ever think of that.
Well, it's interesting because they have done a study that shows life satisfaction and bone health. There's a correlation. So, people who were happier had higher bone densities. However, I found early in my 20s, like really early on in my career, working with patients with chronic pain, head, neck, back. And I had gone through not a great situation, and people are like, "Oh, you're so happy." And I'm thinking, what are they talking about? But then that hit me, the moment that happiness is an inside job, and it wasn't dependent on circumstances. And what was I doing? That's what got me through things. So I started teaching patients, and oh my gosh, miracles started happening. Back pain started getting better, and everything. And I've just found that the happiness I'm talking about is a deep sense of peace and well-being, not dependent. It's not a fake smile type of happiness. But when people started having joy return, and you're feeling a purpose in life, and you're feeling connected, and you're in the flow, everything gets better. And they've done studies on your health. But in terms of you're able to exercise, you want to eat better, you want to do the self-care. So to me, that's actually the foundation of everything I teach, is the happiness. Because I found that it just changed everything. And who does want to wake up tomorrow happier than they are today? So I think that's just a piece of health. But the research has borne it out also with the osteoporosis. So in my program, it's 6 modules, the actual class, and each module is divided into a nutrition section where we talk about, what foods, what supplements, an exercise section. You're really going way more in detail into exercise. And then the third section is stress, because stress, we talked about the cortisol, so really stress reduction. And the last section is happiness, and just some really great tips that you can put into your life with happiness. And since the summit, I've actually added all these things to the class. I've added, because I added a whole, so for people joining now, the class is going to become way more expensive the next time I do it, because I added, people had wanted answers to their questions. So I added, there's like Q&As, monthly Q&As in this now for 6 months. I also added guest speakers. So once a month we have a guest speaker. And so one was on Chinese medicine, what can we use for our bone health? Coming up actually in, let's say, when it's probably, someone on ingredients, anyway, all sorts of different experts to also help with bone health. So it's really filled with lots of information and lots of tools that you can use, and a community. There's a Facebook group that can help support you. So it's been really wonderful, because everyone's been able to help everybody else out and learn, and learn things, and learn what may be underlying root causes and underlying issues so that you can have optimal bone health, and you're doing what you can in a step-by-step fashion. You go at your own pace, no overwhelm, and just to have tools. So that's what the course is.
So is it going now, or is it self-paced?
Yeah. Well, it's going now, but you start whenever you want to start. And anyone that joins will get the Q&As, the recent ones that I did. They'll also have the experts who have been coming. So I had Dr. Sally Lamont. She taught us all these delicious recipes. I had Dr. Shiroko Sokic did a whole thing on Eastern medicine techniques that help our bone health and kidney energy. And then Mira Desi's coming, and I have Joan Pagano, who's really going over new resistance bands exercises coming. So yeah, so you won't miss anything. You'll get all the things that have happened. Yeah.
So how do we join?
So all you do is you can go to happyboneshappylife.com, and that's it. And then you just, you'll explain what it is, but you can just sign up there.
So we put our name and our email, and then we get a.
Oh, no, you can actually that. Well, there's two things. The one thing you can get for free, and that's that mini course that you have on that you put into your newsletter. Yes. And we can, so that's one thing that will give you a calcium sheet. That's free. That's just a free. It's okay. Of course I did. It will give you the calcium sheet. I also have in that posture exercises. So I really go over, what you can do, easy exercises to really improve your posture in like 2 weeks. And then it has on it some stress reduction information, and like a half hour of me going into more things about our bones. But that's very, that's like a very cursory information. But the real course that really gets into the meat and potatoes is that's the happyboneshappylife.com. And it's also, if you go to my website too, which is margiebissinger.com, on the website, you can go under programs, and then it has that program and the happiness program. And so,
I need to join that because of my story about what I'm going through. And I am determined the next time. Can we actually reverse our bone density? Because my friend raised her 7%, and the doctor was so happy and said that was unheard of. But can we get better?
It's interesting because so many people are focused on that. I'm going to reverse the osteoporosis. And I don't really like the concept, because as you get older, you lose bone. So just maintaining if you're at is actually okay, is actually good, because normally, so even maintaining, yes, you can. And I have seen people when they do the exercise, or there are people who, we didn't discuss this, and we could talk for 10 hours, the two of us, but the root cause we didn't discuss. That's very important, because there's so many like you said, you have autoimmune. There were so many issues also that can gluten. There's so many things that can cause osteoporosis, inflammation. So when people figure out the root cause, when they do the exercises, up their diet, reduce the stress, yes, it can certainly get better. Will it reverse? It depends on what it is, but I just don't like focusing on that term, because it can stay the same, and you can get healthy bones and live a wonderful life. So I think yes, and the answer is yes, it can get better.
Oh, that's great news. Yeah, I'm really excited about that. So, we will post it. And for those who want to get the free e-course, and I want to give the name of the e-course too, because they can go to smartwomenblog.com. And if they go there, they will see there's an article, and it's Improve Your Bone Health Naturally. And in the article is the link to the e-course, and the e-course is Improve Your Bone Health Naturally. And did I get that right?
You got it. Yeah.
Okay, great. So that way they can connect with you. Your bio is on there, and we're just so thrilled to have you here and have you as part of our community.
Oh, well, it's so wonderful to be here. And I love your energy, and the messages that you're giving out to the world are so positive and really just wonderful. So, and I'm an energy person. So it's like, I feel your positive energy, which is so nice. So thank you so much for having me. I so appreciate it.
Thank you so much for being here and all you're doing to help us stay strong and healthy and happy.
Thank you.
Okay, wonderful. So everyone, thank you for being here. And again, I want to remind you that if you would like to join our free community, it's Smart Women's Empowerment. And all you have to do is go to joinsmartwomen.com. And when you do, you will receive our e-zine, like Margie was talking about, where we feature who the guests are. We always have a theme and 2, sometimes 3 guests. And the guests will give us free gifts and articles, and you'll be able to join the Smart Women's Academy, where we have a lot of wonderful free courses as well. So until our next show, go out and live with more purpose, passion, and prosperity. Smart Women Talk is brought to you by Smart Women's Empowerment, a 501c3 nonprofit project of United Charitable. Music by Bill Lucas from his album When It Rains. Available on Apple Music and Spotify. Catch us wherever you listen to your favorite podcast, and be sure to join our free community at joinsmartwomen.com to access all our free Smart Women resources.